Today is another day that is yet another occasion that we're hearing in this place that the Prime Minister and his NDP enablers are just not worth the cost. After 9 years of this Liberal-NDP government, it is no longer a stretch to say that Canadians are being robbed not only of the luxuries that they used to enjoy, but also of the hard-earned money and the bare necessities of life. And we all know that the biggest thief of all is this costly coalition's tax and spend regime, a regime that takes from the poor and gives to the rich, does nothing to help the environment, and leaves Canadians with less and less money at the end of every month. The out-of-control Liberal taxes already stole Christmas by putting the cost of home heating and groceries, or putting up those costs, not to mention Christmas presents, simply out of reach. And by ruining Christmas vacation, it wasn't enough for this Liberal Prime Minister, his cabinet, or his NDP enablers. Now they're coming for your summer vacation too. And thanks to the Liberal-NDP government, it is simply too expensive to take a holiday with your family or go on a road trip somewhere or to enjoy everything that the nation has to offer. And if there's even anything left to spend to begin with, because we know that the cost of rent, of mortgages are all up, they've all doubled, grocery bills have skyrocketed, and life everywhere you turn is just getting more and more expensive. You don't have to hear it from me. You can just talk to anybody in your own neighborhood, which I think the Liberals have stopped doing. Mr. Speaker, some of my fondest memories from my childhood involve packing up the car and hitting the road and exploring someplace new with my parents. And for me, seeing the beauty of Canada from the car window started this love for Canada that I still have to this day. And we came to this place and so many others, stopping along the way, anywhere that an old book would tell us that there was something to see. And as an immigrant family, there was an innate sense of pride for my family to be able to explore freely the land that was now ours to explore. And so we're fast forward to the world today, where these days families won't be able to have that experience. In fact, you hear about that every single day, all because of a greedy government that can't keep their hands off of your wallet. And sacrificing holidays with families, much needed time off, or even things like meals, or just the things that you used to have, seems like a new norm in this country. And Canadians have just one message for the Prime Minister. That's Canadians from coast to coast. Just stop. Today's motion will do exactly that, Madam Speaker. It will stop the Liberal regime's, well, forgive the pun, but highway robbery taking place at the gas pumps across the country. On average, the government takes 30 cents at the end price of a litre of gas, from the GST, from the carbon tax, from the excise tax, and not to mention all the hidden costs because of the resource zealots and their anti-resource laws and the red tape at every step of the way to drill oil, to refine it, to ship it, to sell it. And on the docket today, we're calling for the government to give Canadians some temporary relief. Help save them 30 cents on every litre of gas they pump by axing the GST, the carbon tax, and the excise tax charged every time drivers fill their cars. And in just a few months, Madam Speaker, it's going to save the average family over $650. That's what it could do. Money that could pay for one of those hard-earned summer vacations, a vacation that people have been dreaming of after a long years of work, after 9 years of this Liberal-NDP government. Imagine the relief not only for families, but for small businesses and communities right across the country as we unleash a new wave of tourism in places like the beautiful BC interior, Northern Ontario, New Brunswick, all places where people have told me just how much this would help. And they're not just places that suffer during the summer. They suffer all year round of the carbon tax. And we know that particularly in the East Coast, because the Prime Minister actually gave them a break. He actually admitted that his carbon tax was costing too much by giving relief to those in the East Coast, those who the Liberal minister said should vote in more Liberals if she wanted to see those tax breaks given elsewhere in the country. He actually did that. These are places where people have no choice but to drive to work, to buy groceries transported by a truck, to heat their homes with oil. All year round, they are punished by this Prime Minister and his NDP Liberal government. Just like people everywhere from coast to coast, 80% of whom the PBO says pays more to the government than they get back in their so-called rebates. But that brings me to my next point, Madam Speaker. What happens after the summer holiday? It's hard to believe that just in a few months, and I don't really want to talk about this, but we'll be turning in our shorts back to coats. And if this Liberal NDP government has its way, they'll carbon tax until the cows come home, with no chance of relief. In fact, it'll go up again on April Fool's Day, April of 2025. But with a common sense Conservative majority government, Canadians will have relief not just this summer, but all year round. We're going to axe the carbon tax so that families can afford to feed, to heat, and to house themselves. We're going to axe other taxes and clawbacks too, just so workers can keep more of their money, their hard-earned money, spend it instead of having the government spend it for them. And we're going to cap the inflationary, out-of-control borrowing and spending here in Ottawa so that grocery bills, mortgage payments can finally be within reach. So somebody without rich parents or a trust fund can take a summer vacation. Every day we stand here in the House of Commons, and we're the only party of all of the parties, and advocate for ordinary, hardworking Canadians whose government takes more of their money each and every day. Every day we take that message to Canadians. But every day the Liberal government, again, and their NDP partners in crime, stand here and say no. They stand here and vote for more taxes on every single Canadian. They don't just say no to us. They say no to any common sense agenda. They're saying no to millions of Canadians who stand with us too. They're actively thumbing their noses in the faces of so many who just want to get by. The 2 million every month who use a food bank, and the mother who puts water in her kid's milk, or the carpenter that fixes his boots with duct tape. And it is striking, the show of arrogance and incompetence. And it tells you just how out of touch they have become after 9 years in government. For them to stand here and promote a tax, a big fat tax on almost everything that Canadians do and buy as an affordability measure, not just an affordability measure, but the centerpiece of the Liberals' ideological crusade, ask Canadians. They will tell you that they are not better off. In fact, I haven't run into anybody who is better off today than they were 9 years ago. On this side of the House, we have a real agenda. We're going to axe the tax. We are going to build homes. We're going to fix the budget, and we are going to stop the crime. A common sense plan to fix what this Prime Minister has so broken after 9 years of being here. And that plan starts right now, right here this summer. They could vote for this. They could vote for this today, and we will continue the fight for everyone being left behind after 9 years of their government. The choice is clear between the only party that is going to axe the tax for Canadians, to build homes for Canadians, to fix the budget for Canadians, and to stop the crime for Canadians. We are the only party out of all of the parties in this House making any sense at all. And if you don't believe me, go outside of this place and ask 9 out of 10 Canadians, and they will tell you that they are not better off. Today, tomorrow, and every single day, in government or in opposition, we are going to continue to stand up for Canadians. And all we want is for once, for them to have some compassion, even some courage, to have a free vote and vote for this motion again and give people the summer vacation that they want and that they deserve.
Questions and comments? The honourable for Fleetwood Port Kells.
There's the light. Okay. I appreciate my colleague's speech. She's very articulate, very eloquent, but she misses a few points. The kind of tax cut that they're talking about would, somebody would have to burn almost 1,300 litres of gasoline over the next 3 months to really make that make sense. But there's a couple of other things. So, okay, we do without the rebates. All right, that's a consequence of axing the tax. But what a lot of people can't or don't remember is that 40% of the excise taxes collected in Canada go back to municipalities to help them with infrastructure. I know this from my days in Metro Vancouver at the Transportation Authority because we benefited from that. Is that also something she would give up? And would she be prepared to contemplate somebody doing a Daniel Smith or the big oil companies just simply raising their prices to take up the space left when she cuts the tax?
The honourable member for the honourable deputy leader for the official opposition.
Madam Speaker, imagine telling Canadians that you think that 30 cents a litre is somehow punishing, that 30 cents off of a litre by taking off the carbon tax, the excise tax, the GST is somehow a bad thing. Imagine telling them that they can't take a summer vacation. And with the case of Alberta, we all know this, and we've said it in this House hundreds of times. The cost of the carbon tax is $2,943. The price of the rebate is $2,032. That number is less than the number that people pay. And in fact, when they up the carbon tax when they quadruple it like they want to, that number is going to cost families over $5,700, and the rebate, $2,900.
Questions and comments? The honourable for Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her intervention. One of my challenges, though, is that when she talks about Alberta, when she talks about the carbon tax, she is not listening to expert economists. And I brought this up in this House today, but I'll read it one more time. A clear majority of households in Alberta do receive rebates that are larger than the carbon taxes they pay for. If we got rid of the carbon tax and the rebate, then this would harm a much larger fraction of lower and middle income households than it would high income households. So in fact, what the Conservatives are proposing would hurt the people that need that rebate the most. So what she's talking about, this is coming from an economist professor at the University of Calgary, Trevor Toombs, very well known in Alberta, should be very well known in this House as well, very smart man. So what she's saying is that those people that are wealthy are the ones that are they're the ones that the Conservatives are most interested in helping. And
the honourable member for the honourable deputy leader for the official opposition.
Madam Speaker, we're listening to ordinary Canadians. We're listening to premiers across the province, 70% of which want this gone. 70% of Canadians who want this gone because they know, despite being lectured otherwise by the government who continues to tell you the opposite of what the PBO told this House, another expert, I guess they pick and choose on experts, that Alberta families actually get less. I would suggest that the member opposite listen to her constituents and listen to people right across the country who are telling them to axe the tax. And if they don't, they will finally have a government in place after a carbon tax election that will.
We have time for a brief question. The honourable member Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and a great intervention from my colleague. Quick question. One of the numbers that she had brought up was how much the average family will save by having this carbon tax and excise tax and GST rebate over the summer. We also know that there's reports that the average family will be spending $700 more on food this year, and so the costs just keep going up. So so if the member can just answer, how big of a difference will this tax holiday make to families this summer?
Brief answer. The honourable member for deputy House leader for the official opposition.
Look, I think that out of all the parties in this House, there is only one party that ever talks about tax cuts, and that's the Conservative Party. And if Canadians want a party that is going to put more money in their pockets and less money to feed this obese government, then they have a clear choice in the next election, in the next carbon tax elections, when Conservatives will go to the people.